After an identity is assigned to you, without your knowledge, you will be sent to an organization called an educational system. It differs a little from country to country, considering the culture, but more than that, a country's budget. So I will refer to the educational system from the country where I was born. The differences are almost less important considering the similarities. Kindergarten lasts about 3 or 4 years, but can vary. In kindergarten, I learned many stories, tales, things related to imagination. Why? I don't know. Nobody told me. I still have no idea why.
Well, you must understand that today we expose children to artificial values first. Moo moo, said the cow. Ba ba, said the sheep. When you bring up children with that kind of garbage, they can learn geology, children can learn engineering, mathematics. Children are capable of learning the same thing adults are. It takes just as much garbage that you fill the kids' heads with, and you keep pumping information into their head that's unreal, and then you expect them to be able to think later on. Children can learn to read at a very early age. They can understand complex things like continental drift. They can understand volcanoes, nature. They can understand the symbiotic process. But you have things like a Mickey Mouse Club. Imagine that. Imagine all the ridiculous things that children are exposed to. So here we damage them right away because we think, well, I guess that's the way children are. No, they are not. I can like to say this about my own little boy. When he was about 4 years old, he said, Daddy, the wheel came off my toy car. Will you fix it? So I said, so it did. I'll get you baby toys where the wheels don't come off. And I threw the car in the garbage. Well, I watched him, and I noticed that lower lip come out, and he said, you throwed it away. And so I said, yes, I did. So he said, well, maybe I can fix it. Then I took it out and I gave it to him. And he tried to put it together, and he did put it together within a few minutes. Then I picked him up and said, that's wonderful. How did you do that? He said, I'm not that little. In other words, if you give kids responsibility, instead let Daddy solve this, let Daddy do that for you, let Mommy fix that, you produce a blob that doesn't think.
I was often forced to wear the same outfit as others, an outfit imposed by the educational system without an explanation. The school program is fixed, so you are bound to respect it, otherwise it is likely to expel you, resulting in a potential lack of job, leading you to starvation, being unable to take possession of money. Speaking of program, school started early in the morning. Because of this, I was forced to wake up around 7 a.m. This meant that bedtime was not dictated by the biological system, but by the educational system, leading to constant brain and other organs fatigue. I often came to school very sleepy, and the school wants to be an institution in which you must retain information. Classes were fixed, so were the breaks. The program was about 6 to 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. The educational program lasted about 12 years, and the break was about 2 to 3 months every year. The educational system has created the first scale of values and labeled people as being stupid or smart because of some unknown rules, creating envy.
If you're born with a better brain than them, say the tissue is better quality, the neural processes are better built, if you live in Nazi Germany, you become a Nazi faster. even if your brain is better. The brain has no mechanism for knowing that which is relevant or less relevant.
And that goes for intelligence. I don't know if I've talked to you about an electrical engineer of 75 years ago, an intelligent one, couldn't get a job today. So when you talk of intelligence, what are you talking about? It's an ongoing process. It isn't, that's why there's no such thing as an intelligent person. That are people who are fairly well informed in area A and B, not informed in area C.
Also, schools promoted competition. That leads instinctively to dispute. And do not forget that competition may have winners and losers. Mostly, the school in which I, along with millions of other children, have taken part, created a false scale of values and promoted competition. Also, schools destroyed something very important: curiosity. Since nobody gave you an explanation for the way you were forced to behave, just telling you to do things without asking.
You say you're worried about kids. I'm not worried about kids. I'm worried about grown-ups, okay? These are the ones who vote. These are the ones who tell you the world is coming to an end in 2012. Kids don't say that. Grown-ups do. I'm worried about grown-ups who say, read my horoscope. Tell me where they'll find money tomorrow. Grown-ups say this, not children, okay? Children do not read horoscopes, okay? Children are perfectly happy counting through the number 13. Children are not afraid to walk under ladders. They see a black cat cross their path, they say, oh, kitty, kitty, they want to pet it and not run in the other direction. Children are not the problem here. Get me started. Plus, kids are born curious. They're always exploring. We spend the first year of their lives teaching them how to walk and talk, and the rest of their lives telling them to shut up and sit down.
To see what this is all about, and to summarize what I have learned in school, let's recap. I remember that I learned a language. This language that you are hearing right now. Let's focus a little bit on that.
People don't understand me. We don't know. A lot of people think that somebody invented language. And they say the reason they invented language is to communicate. That's not true. What happened, the guy banged his elbow. He went, ah, and he banged his knee, went, whoa. And he ate something with his feet, and language is an extrapolation of all those sounds over many years. Nobody's ever sat down and invented language.
The language in this form is centuries old, and although it has represented the point of support in the development of mankind, is now outdated. Often slow, sometimes too long for the sent message, but more importantly, it's interpretable, which makes it useless. We know that mathematics, chemistry, and physics are not subject to interpretation. They are fixed languages. Well, the language that you are hearing right now is interpretable. I can tell you now that you and your boss are the same. But what did I actually mean? You are the same, but how? You look the same, behave similarly, or what? Depends on what you understand, because this is interpretable. But if I scientifically prove to you that both of you are composed of the same chemical elements, then no one would have any doubt what my message means. Consider now the people who build all kinds of buildings. They are constructing using all of those fixed languages so that everyone understands, and the building could fit the environment. No opinion here. So in those 12, or for me 15 years of school, I learned an exceeded language that adds to the confusion of the current world. Moreover, I learned one language out of hundreds, which does not help me when I leave the country. I learned an interpretable language that helps me communicate with a few tens of millions of people on the planet out of 7 billion. That in an era of the internet, a place without fictitious boundaries. Why haven't I learned a universal language? One more compact and less interpretable? Or why didn't I learn the other fixed languages better than this interpretable one? I have possible theories, but they don't matter. All that matters is that you ask yourself. Besides this language, I learned mathematics, and even after I finished school, I thought that mathematics is a bunch of letters and numbers with certain rules, and that everything is a game for brain development. My colleagues thought the same thing. Perhaps some of them didn't even ask. I created this theory because nobody ever could give me a more detailed explanation other than you need to know how to calculate. Calculate money or what? I wonder if my old colleagues even know what mathematics really means. The same happened with physics and chemistry. Blackboard, white chalk, and a professor with a fixed character, together with a fixed and obligatory school schedule, pushed me away from reality, and all those fixed languages have become nonsense bonds. That's why many students hate such classes. Their value is never explained. Remember that no such fixed language could help me in daily life of the monetary system, because the basic language used here is one that you are witnessing right now, a language old and subject to interpretation. I also learned geography and history. History never interested me because I did not know if indeed such things happened. They were just writing for me, and the present is much more important anyway. Besides, I didn't agree with stories where armed criminals were seen as leading heroes. Geography taught me names that, it said, were countries. That means some portions of the planet Earth were conquered by people, just as monkeys do, and named. This is the concept of countries, and that is how countries evolved. Even today, boundaries separate areas and are dividing the human species, leading to racism and instinctively slowing progression due to separation. Countries and cities have no importance because the Earth itself is the common heritage of all humans. You can define a piece of Earth, name it, and say it is yours only by imagination. It will be recognized by others in its value only if others accept that as being true, also through imagination. That's what I retain from geography, names and imaginary demarcation. I learned about God and religion, a theory that says that the world was created by a divine creature within 7 days. Basically, the theory was promoted and accepted by all, especially as it was taught in school as being true. It is in contradiction with other subjects in school, such as physics, chemistry, or biology, even with reason, and for me, it just created confusion. My school didn't focus on sport, music, or drawing, so I cannot remember anything from these areas. The closer I got to the end of these 12 years, the less rationality I found in what I learned. What we learn in school does not have any tangent with reality, only with further education through college. In the monetary system, college is the final step of this human education, and college will prepare you for a job. That makes the educational system a system of training workers. "12 years in which I learned a language that confused me more than it helped me. 12 years in which I was confused by these different theories of my existence. 12 years in which I have been obligated to present myself at fixed hours to an institution and to have a certain uniform. 12 years in an organization that pushed me away from mathematics, physics, biology, or chemistry. 12 years in which I did not receive any explanation for what I learned, or why I learned it, or why I should respect the educational system's rules. 12 years that I personally consider being lost and immoral. 12 years in which I could learn so much. Then another 3 years of college, which only prepared me for a job. So where is the education? Maybe the country where I was born was to blame. But then you can think of the years you've spent at school and the information learned. Then correlate that with reality and draw your own conclusions. After you draw your conclusions, think about whether you accept taking part in such a program for 12 to 15 years, only to learn without receiving any degree or gratitude at the end.
I haven't heard school teachers say, let us make education relevant to the needs of people. I've never heard the descriptive system from universities or any elaborate organization. The democratic concept, for example, where everybody participates and contributes, I believe they can only contribute that which they've learned from the culture. And they can't be that different and be a member of a standard organization.
Even though the universities today have the most sophisticated equipment in the science labs, the architectural labs, all the labs, and the wars are getting worse. The explosives are getting worse.
Now let's look at how children learn and how schools might look in a system focused on progress and freedom of human beings.
The children enthusiastically got after me to say, now what do you want us to do? I gave them 6 GCSE questions. The first group, the best one, solved everything in 20 minutes. The worst in 45. They used everything that they knew. News groups, Google, Wikipedia, Ask Jeeves, etc. The teachers said, is this deep learning? I said, well, let's try it. I'll come back after 2 months. We'll give them a paper test, no computers, no talking to each other, etc. The average score when I'd done it with the computers and the groups was 76%. When I did the experiment, when I did the test after 2 months, the score was 76%. There was photographic recall. I mean, if there's stuff on Google, why would you need to stuff it into your head? I basically embedded a computer into a wall of a slum in New Delhi. The children barely went to school, they didn't know any English, they'd never seen a computer before, and they didn't know what the internet was. I repeated this all over India and then through a large part of the world, and noticed that children will learn to do what they want to learn to do. So at the end of it, we concluded that groups of children can learn to use computers and the internet on their own, irrespective of who or where they were. I got an interesting phone call once from Colombo, from the late Arthur C. Clarke, who said, I want to see what's going on. And he couldn't travel, so I went over there. He said 2 interesting things. A teacher that can be replaced by a machine should be. The second thing he said was that if children have interest, then education happens. And I was doing that in the field, so every time I would watch it and think of him.
Possible, and they can undoubtedly help people, because the children very quickly learn to navigate the web and find things which interest them, and when you've got interest, then you have education.
I think we've just stumbled across a self-organizing system. A self-organizing system is one where a structure appears without explicit intervention from the outside. Self-organizing systems also always show emergence, which is that the system starts to do things which it was never designed for, which is why you react the way you do, because it looks impossible. I think I can make a guess now. Education is a self-organizing system where learning is an emergent phenomenon.
Now that we know that children learn and organize themselves better through curiosity, you should only provide information and access to them. It's simple.
Hi, my name is Sal Khan. I'm the founder and faculty of the Khan Academy, and we're trying to educate the world.
Welcome to the presentation on Basic Addition. But in August of 1789, they've already done their version of the Declaration of Independence. And the process is called photosynthesis.
I was tutoring my cousins, literally, and I had to kind of figure out a way to scale myself up, so I started recording YouTube videos, and I started making little software modules for them, but I made it so anyone could use them, and started getting a lot of traction.
What Sal Khan has done is amazing. He's taken all this material and broken them down into little 12-minute lectures. I use it myself to remind myself of things. I have children who like it. So I was super happy he came up and we got to talk about where does he go now? How can my foundation help him pursue this dream and connect it up with the other great things going on the internet?
I want it to be a standalone virtual school where anyone in the world who wants to learn anything can go there, start from the basics, progress as far as they need to go, get feedback, get assessment, get practice, and eventually I want it to actually become the operating system for what goes on in the classroom, where every student's allowed to work at their own pace, and the teacher actually becomes more of a mentor or of a coach.
So I see Sal Khan as a pioneer in an overall movement to use technology to let more and more people learn things, know where they stand. It's the start of a revolution.
A system like that will create curious, intelligent, and inventive individuals, something different from a worker. Such a system couldn't help you in the monetary system. Then you have to ask yourself, why is that?
I didn't want to teach my kid how to read. So I used to read to him at night and close the book at the most interesting part. He said, "What happened then, Daddy?" I said, "Look, if you learn to read, you can find out. I'm too tired to read. I'll read to you tomorrow." So he had a need to want to learn to read. Don't teach children how to read. Don't teach them mathematics. Give them a reason to want it. But everybody doesn't know what that means. In school, they're working ass backwards.
An individual of the human species, the dominant intelligent species on planet Earth, should learn how he and the environment works, to try to understand what is happening around him through the best and demonstrable information possible. It is a mockery to use 12, 15, or even more years of a human being's life, that is around 70 to 80 years, to prepare him to be a worker or to learn a language limited by your culture. Such an educational system is against evolution. It makes the human species go forward, not in a straight line, but in ellipses.